My name is Michelle. This is my so-called Handmade Life, the podcast. I have a blog by the same name, and I'm my so-called Handmade Life on Instagram. On Ravelry, I'm Mamatronic, and I'm pretty active on Ravelry. And I have dogs that are going to bump the camera every few seconds, walking around, looking longingly at me because I'm paying attention to you and not them. This is sort of a knitting podcast, but I also talk about other things I'm doing and kind of whatever I feel like talking about. And you help determine what I speak about with your comments. I ask questions often at the end of the episode, and in the show notes, it's like the first thing I list is my question for you. And the things you have to say, it just helps shape our conversation here. So I really do appreciate those comments. I did want to say in the comments last week, somebody had said I'd gotten political and they turned off the podcast. They didn't want to finish it because it was not really a knitting podcast. And I told them, well, you really didn't listen, because if you had, you would have heard that I said, I don't know the answer completely to our border crisis here in Texas, in our country. I also said I know there are dangerous elements, people crossing the border. I was merely talking about people seeking asylum from a terrible situation. Most of us, if we put ourselves in their place, could empathize. And that was simply part of a discussion, a larger discussion we've been having about communities and freedom of mobility in your community. And then someone left a comment about prejudice in particular, and that's where that came from. And so in my answer, I said, well, you would have heard I said this and I said that. Well, I went back and watched the episode, and I didn't say all of what I commented that I had. I did the first time, but my computer ate that episode, so I tried to refilm it, and I wasn't as succinct. I didn't say it all. But I think my attitude came across pretty well, because after I uploaded the second version, Julie commented she lives in Texas and actually has relatives that live on the border. They have a ranch, and she said that she shared my feelings that it is a difficult situation. She doesn't know the answer. She would err on the side of compassion as far as asylum seekers, but her relatives have seen people crossing their property armed. So I think that my feelings about this came across, that I wasn't really stating my political views, other than the policy of separating parents from children was ridiculous, wrong, but also just served no good purpose. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify. I didn't say everything I said I did in the comments. I did in the first episode, but, that one is lost forever. So, onward to another subject. And I do feel like I can talk about, if I wanted to talk about politics, I could. This is my so-called handmade life. However, I don't usually talk about politics. I find it's really disappointing, and I don't feel super represented by any politicians. So let's talk about Junco, June, and July. You guys, new people have joined. I'm going to show you my Plum sweater. This is a Junco Okamoto pattern. If you haven't heard of Junco, she has a lot of really neat designs. Most of them are very oversized sweaters that are just a one-size sweater. So, depending on your size, it might fit you more regular fit. It might be super oversized, but the shape of it makes it work. For everybody I've seen that's made one, it looks really good on them. All sizes. So Plum is the one that I chose to do for these 2 months, and I'm obviously not going to be finished because it's like the 29th. But this sweater has a little bit of everything. You see there's a V-neck that can be a front, or it can be the back of the sweater, and you can have more of a, not a boat neck, but a straight collar. Then there's this lace and textured stitching. It's really great. And then you've got your color work, which is the Plum design. This is unblocked, so it's not super clear. It's really going to smooth out when it's blocked. Also, there's a little more texture, and then you have your stockinette body. Now, the ribbing at the bottom you finish it with a regular bind off, not a binding off and rib. So I'm really not sure. See, mine kind of curls out. I don't know if you can see that. See that little bit of curl? This is that Moike Elena yarn. I've never used it before. I've never had rib curl out like this. However, this is knit. It's not bound off and rib. There's a knit row and then a regular bind off, which gives it a neat little, it gives it a neat look. And if you go and look in the finished objects, it's got a really interesting finish to it. So I'm not sure if I just need to steam block. The ribbing itself is pulling in like ribbing normally would, but this isn't meant to have that. It's meant to be straight all the way down. The ribbing is not really acting as a to cinch in the bottom of the sweater at all. This is a cropped, very oversized, free-flowing sweater. But I knit it that way because usually my ribbing expands and it's kind of floppy unless I go down a needle size. So I went down a needle size, but I used that same size to do this bind off. So I'm hoping when I stretch the sweater out with blocking that this will take care of it. If not, I'm not quite sure what to do. I can try again, or I could always bind off in ribbed bound off. But I like the idea of this. It's different, and so I think I'm just going to try blocking. No one else has had that issue, but I think Melanie is the only other person knitting a plum or a sweater with this Elena yarn. I think she's using Elena, and so I don't think she's quite there yet. I'm this far on my sleeves, and the sleeves have a really great cable that goes all the way down. I like this cable down the sides. I love how that looks, but you see that doesn't look so neat at the ribbing. So I'm gonna have to look into that. This has been a pleasure. Even the stockinette was a pleasure to work with, this Elena yarn. Very real and rustic-y, feels very sheepy. I did the plums in just some Cloudborne Highland fiber sport weight. This is covered in my little dog's hair. You can see he's my buddy when I knit. But several new people have joined. Like I said, Melanie, I think I might have shown her progress last week. So I'll show people's progress unless I don't get their permission. One person left to get permission to show their photo from Instagram. This is an Instagram knit along. You can find it with the hashtag Junko, June and July. Marie has joined. She hasn't posted on Instagram yet, but she has talked with me via my blog. She's in New Zealand, and she is knitting the Igawa. Rosamond is doing the Igawa also, and probably finished with the body by today. She's probably on her sleeves. Igawa is that oversized, it's a very simple stockinette sweater, but the finish, the edges have a raw look. I really like the way it looks. Very casual and comfortable. And hers is beautiful in a speckled, bright yarn. Nikki has also joined us, and she's knitting a beret. I think it's the Lee beret by Junko, which is and she's doing it in the same yarn, which you can see here. I mean, let's turn this better. You can see. It's just a really, I don't know, it's just going to make a great texture, because the Lee beret has, I think, little baubles and lace, and it's just got a great look to it. So I'm excited to see how it's coming along. Jen has finished her plum. So Aurelie already finished hers. Jen has now finished hers, and it's beautiful, gorgeous. And she had no trouble with her ribbing curling, so this is probably my issue alone. Amber has made good progress on her plum. I think she's to the color work now. Melanie also, I believe, maybe finished with the color work. Melanie had a photo on Instagram, I'll show it, where she posed a primitive doll in her plum. It was so interesting. I've never seen a primitive doll like that. These are dolls people made as dolls, and she's made a few herself, but she said she's collected them also. And really interesting. So there's that. Sarah Jane has finished her rug, and she is the one who did several colors. She had to color block it and have a constantly changing set of colors in the contrast part of the fair isle because she didn't have a lot of any one color, and they all look really good together. The palette is just really kind of, I don't know, muted, and it makes me think of muted summery colors. I don't know, I love it. It looks really nice. Nick M on Instagram had started a rug. I may have shown that in the last episode. And Katinka's rug is coming along. She's doing hers in that beautiful, vibrant purple, which she doesn't really think is her color, but she's got it. And it is beautiful. I used to not like purple because that was our high school team colors, and I just got so sick of hearing people say, if you cut me, I'll bleed purple, and things like that. It was just so goofy. We were so bananas over football. I didn't like it for years, but I got over it. In fact, I'm going to knit a humulus in purple, very similar colors to Katinka's, so it's a beautiful rug. And then CT Knitter, which is Elizabeth, has finished her Twigs sweater. Twigs is such a great fair isle sweater. It's got a similar shape to Plum, and I'm going to flash a picture here. So you guys are doing a great job in the knit along. I'm trying to think if I missed anybody else's project. I don't think so unless it was posted today. And then next week I will draw a winner. I wasn't going to do giveaways and stuff, but Julianne was so nice to contribute that skein of Michelle colorway self-striping yarn. So let's see if I have it. I don't have it with me, but I'm going to show it again next week, and I'll announce the winner. And I had those pins, a pin for them also. So I got something in the mail on Chaitanya and Sarah Jane's recommendation, The Happiness Project. I went ahead and got the book. I didn't know if it was like workbook-like, but Chaitanya had said there was prompts in it. It doesn't look like it is a workbook, but I thought maybe I would want to take notes in the margin, because sometimes I do that. And anyway, and I haven't started it yet, but we've been talking a little about making our lives a little more simplified, pleasant, happiness, and our health. Kind of a lot all at once. Something I got that you probably saw Andrea Mowry recommended it, maybe in her newsletter. She was talking about how she reads while she knits, which I can do on a Kindle. But I have a lot of real books that I want in book form, things I make notes in or underline. And so she shows this stand. It's movable little arms that will hold your pages down. You don't have to use both sides. And they have a little plastic coating over them so they won't tear the page. It's adjustable. This isn't the same brand that she had. I got a different one. But it's really handy. Like, I am able to read now while I knit. Any book that was fairly large, like say this is Maggie Righetti's Sweater Design in Plain English. Any book that's large like this, it's really hard to read because the pages want to flop closed. And I just spend a lot of time weighing it down with stuff and then balancing animals crawling all over me. So this was really a lifesaver for me. And so I will be able to read this, not on Kindle, a lot easier. I'm interested in reading it and sharing what I think about it with you guys. Thank you for that recommendation. Also, Braid and Tinker, which is Melanie, she has the her Braid and Tinker podcast. She recommended Ice Cream for Breakfast, which is a similar idea, I think. It's kind of she said it was about approaching life more like a child, getting the fun out of life, not taking things too seriously. And I do have a feeling that is similar to this book, The Happiness Project, or Why I Spent a Year Trying to Sing in the Morning, Clean My Closets, Fight Right, Read Aristotle, and Generally Have More Fun. So Gretchen Rubin has a podcast, an audio podcast, and I believe it's called, Happier, maybe? But if you look up podcast Gretchen Rubin, you can find it easily. I'll link it also. Everything will be linked. I have lots of show notes. So I asked you guys, because Jen left us last week with kind of a list. It's for her, it's goals to help kind of produce a happy life, you know, the things that she's working on right now that make her feel more satisfied and happy in life. And I read them on the podcast last time. So I asked you guys, what would your happiness list be if you had to just do a short list? And Sarah said, 1, being thankful, and 2, spending time with grandchildren and pets. They're great attitude adjusters. I like that. That's true. I can totally see how that would be true. I don't have grandkids, but I know how it was when my kids were little. Or even now. And I have pets. I've got pets. So, yeah, I can see the attitude adjustment. It's true. They bring a lot of joy. And lessons. Lots of lessons learned. Little Kitten said, meaningful time with a loved one where she gives her full attention. Which is the key, right? Because, the smartphone has destroyed a lot of our family time. It really has. I don't mean just my family. I mean families in general. Young people have trouble holding conversations, especially if they're of any length, because they're used to switching from thing to thing, I believe. Also, I really hate it. I think my children understand that when people are talking to you, you don't need to be looking at your phone. It's important to look people in the eye and give them your full attention. But, I don't know how many adults I meet that when they're talking to me, they're making eye contact and there's all this, emotion going on, but the second I start to speak, their face is down in their phone or they're looking around. That's adults, my generation. And I know the phone has contributed to that. So her second point was to eat tasty, healthy food. 3, move more. Run, bike, do yoga, dance, weights, whatever. And then knit and watch podcasts, read good books, and listen to beautiful music. So there's several, she said, that you'll hear over and over. Jen had left her list for the things she's doing to work on just enjoying life, feeling happier. But one of her things was to reduce her extra responsibilities so that she's just not under stress. And I had asked her, what are you doing to reduce, the load? And she said she is not volunteering for anything more than she's already doing with her children. And she's having everybody in the house do their own laundry and their own dishes. So I didn't know that at the time, but a month ago, I just said, that's it. I'm done with washing everybody's dishes. We have a dishwasher, but it's just been really hard to keep up with them. I don't work right now, so I don't have a problem with washing up after 3 meals. But my son has 6 or 7 meals a day. He's eating all the time. I can't keep up with it. There are dirty dishes on the counter in the sink constantly. So I said, this is it. We're not using our dishwasher anymore. We are not using it right now. We are going to, everybody hand wash your dishes the second you're done eating. And that, my husband's like, okay, whatever. But my son was like, that's stupid. We have a dishwasher. But even he admits after a month that our kitchen is always clean. There's not, gunk dried onto dishes because they sat for a while in a dishwasher or dirty in the sink. Everything has been really spotless, and it's just easier. It's not that hard to wash things when they're freshly used. So that's been a big relief for me. I just used to feel so ugh when I'd wake up in the morning and see a sink full of dishes, and I had done the dishes right before I went to bed the night before. So I get it, Jen. I can see how it would make a difference. She's also using the Day One Journal app, which sounds really good. Like you can just, maybe it might even notify you, it's time to write something in your journal. I don't know if it does, but you can just put in a few words, or you can write paragraphs, whatever you want, and then you can include photos. So it's sort of like an online scrapbook, which is kind of what I want to do with my blog, but I don't do it daily. So I think that's great, especially when your kids are young, because there's so many things you forget. Just recently, I've been reminded of so many things I had forgotten. Funny things my sister remembers happening with my kids and me, and I didn't remember. So yeah, that journal app sounds great. Rosamond's list was to start at some point every day, do some focused breathing. She has a meditation app that plays nature sounds, and so she just tries to calm down, breathe deeply. Most health experts will tell you that we don't breathe deeply enough anymore. Some of it has to do with our posture, the way we sit in chairs, we slouch over, or the way we pop our ribs out as we stand. We compensate for faulty posture all the time, and our lungs do not expand fully. We also are shallow breathers, maybe due to our lack of activity, I don't know, but it makes a difference to focus on really breathing and really filling your lungs. So I can see how that would help you. And then knitting. Podcast, especially ones, she said, that are not so much consumer-based. Knitting, time with her little ones, her loved ones. So she has one child. And like little kittens, she said, she liked that idea of focused attention also. And then she acknowledged that something I had said, that when we are physically weak, we tend to be more prone to negative self-talk. That's something I talked about a couple of weeks ago. And she said that's really true. And so she's been focusing on her mental attitude, her mental health. And even though she does have chronic fatigue, and it is making, her health is not what she would like it to be right now, her physical health, she's focusing on what she can, her mental health. And she's seeing joy in circumstances. Like, for instance, she is weak a lot and often has to just get in the bed because she's tired, but she has plenty of time with her loved ones. So she's looking for the good in the situation, and says her mental health has never been better. Lori said that for her, happiness is, she achieves happiness when she makes sure to take care of herself and not just others. She can do more for them and give longer if she has, taken care of her own needs. So to do this, she volunteers only in things that bring her joy, and she knits and she exercises. So I wish that I had learned to just volunteer. Well, if I feel like I'm supposed to do something, like really meant to, it will bring me joy, even if it's hard. But there have been times I just did it because somebody asked, and I wanted to people please, and then I didn't enjoy it. And if I didn't enjoy it, I promise, 9 times out of 10, I was not needed. I was just kind of wasting my time. It wasn't a necessary thing that I was doing, and it was taking time from my personal life, my family. I wish that I had learned to be more choosy in how I volunteered. Sarah Jane's list is go smell the woods, cuddle her sons, eat healthfully, and have some me time. to wander, this is how she said it, to wander, meander, and do whatever I like in the moment. I like that. That is kind of a lost thing, a lost art. Do you remember being like a teenager or a young kid, and Saturday or Sunday, before you had a lot of homework, you know, and there really wasn't much to do on the weekends, and you could just, I don't know, read all day, or draw, or write a story and draw pictures to go with it, or I remember going and collecting rocks and making stuff, or decoupage, you know, just try something new. We had childcraft books, and I might look something up and see how to do it. Write a poem, you know, anything. Or go walk in the woods, and just whatever happened, happened. Wherever I ended up, I ended up. That's not something I was able to do for a long time, and you can't always, but wherever you have time to just give yourself a little wiggle room to just be. I like that idea. For the bigger picture, she said she wants to be honest, positive, create awareness, and trust that the hard times she's gone through have contributed to her growth, and, you know, prepare her for the future. So, Adina had said the key to happiness for her would be, her little short list would be to do something about a situation, not just let a problem grow worse. If she can fix it, fix it. If she can't, then at least do something positive toward a change. Acknowledge the issue. She doesn't like to just sit by and watch things, you know, an issue need to be addressed. And then count her blessings. She said that she's often called a doer. You know, I was thinking about that. That's just not an answer I expected from somebody, to do something about a situation. And of course, she's thinking a situation that has, there's a need, a problem, an issue. But, you know, a lot of people don't think that way. I think I do to a degree. If I see something's wrong, I want to talk about it right away. Whether it's something wrong with me or I sense it in somebody else. Why are you upset? Why? A lot of people don't like that. That is overbearing to them. Really, I did not get that when I was a young adult. I just thought everybody wanted to pull it out and look at it. Let's fix it. Let's see what we can do. No, they don't. For me, the challenge was learning to do what I can on my own. Since sometimes things involve other people, and like Adina said, you can't fix everything, but it makes her feel good to just do something positive toward it. I had to learn, you know, what my portion to do was, and then, oh well, you just have to let some things go. But I get what you're saying, Adina, about being a doer, because I do tend to troubleshoot. I can have sort of a negative attitude, though, because I see problems in things. I do have a troubleshooter type mindset, and I see problems and it can get me down. But I like to, okay, let's just roll up our sleeves and let's take care of this now, you know. My sister's knitter, Andy, hi Andy, she said gratitude for all the things that she's been graced with, having gratitude, and to listening to music and podcasts. That brings her happiness. Gratitude is a big one. Marie also said counting her blessings in small daily things like food on the table, friends, a warm home, being able to go to her church, things like that. So you guys had a lot in common with me. Gratitude is the first one. Except, I don't know about you guys. This may be what you do. I don't tend to lean. I'm not naturally that grateful, I think. Like I said, I tend to see a problem. Oh, wow, what do I do about it? Let's get to work. But I don't just stop and think, wow, this could be so much worse. I'm glad things are this way. That's something I really need to work on. So for my list, before I read all of your responses, I already knew. Number one, I need to say thank you for something before I even get out of the bed in the morning, just to kind of get the mindset on. that this is a good life. I have a good life. I have a lot to be thankful for. So that's my number one. I just hit my teeth with my cup. Oh, that hurts so bad. Okay. Number two, listen to music. Again, I didn't know you guys were going to say that, but recently I was talking with my husband about how we don't listen to music like we used to. When I was in junior high school, and early 20s, I just inhaled music. I was always buying albums or CDs. I loved to just sit and listen. And that's a lot of what my husband and I did when we dated. We would just listen to music together. Even after we married, we get a new album, we sit and we listen to the whole CD, and then maybe again. I guess, I don't know, the busyness of life, things have changed. I just quit somewhere along the way. I have a lot of good vinyl. I need to be listening to it. So I've made an effort lately to listen to maybe half an album. Or like a couple of days ago, I was sitting outside with the dogs, and I thought of that Wilco song, Muzzle the Bees. I really like that song. And so I found it on Spotify, and I listened to like the next couple of songs on the album. It was just so nice to sit and listen. And then I listened to them again, and then again. I enjoyed it so much. So it's a way to slow down. And then another thing for me would be to immerse myself in nature as much as I can. Where I live, it's not super easy, but anytime I can. And so another thing on my list, because I live close to the beach, I really want to go to the beach every other week. But if I can do it once a month, that would be great. I like to walk on the beach and just hang out. Swim some, but we often have like health hazard warnings because of the funk in the water. So it's more about walking up and down the beach and it's time spent with people. Then I want to try some new things pretty regularly. Not some big expansive project. It doesn't have to be like my Plum sweater. Maybe sketching something regularly. I have a little book, and I've been trying to do little quick sketches, like a 2-minute sketch, just to see how much I can see and get down perspective-wise, some shading, in like a minute or two. Also, I'm doing this rally class with my dog. I don't know if you have ever obedience trained your dogs. There's AKC obedience, and then there's rally. And rally is more like you've got a course you follow, like from point to point with your dog, and you can coach them along and cheer them along. And they usually have to do a little jump, and then they have to stop, and then stand, and then sit, and then you walk in a circle around them, and it progresses. There's advanced rally where you're off leash. Well, our biggest dog is our most recent pet. She's just had some misbehavior. We needed to kind of reinstate authority. So getting her some more exercise is important. And I've enjoyed, I went to the rally class. I was given the wrong date. I went to the first class, and it was pretty advanced. And, there was like 10 stations numbered from 1 to 10, and you walk to a sign, and it tells you what to do, like an arrow to the left. So, okay, turn left with your dog. And then you see the next sign, it's got a stop sign, and it says sit. And so you do that, and, you follow the course. I understood all of the signs except for one, but it just seemed really advanced. Like, really, the instructor didn't instruct us on how to do it. She just kind of let us do it, and my dog didn't do bad. The next week, there were like 17 stations, and the signs were just, I didn't even understand what they meant. Arrows swirling around other arrows, and another arrow going through it, and it would say different things about turning in to the dog, and I didn't know what it was. And finally, I asked the girl next to me, I even tried doing it, and my dog was just the dunce of the class. And I asked the girl next to me, is this the second lesson for this class? She said, no, this is our last week. We test next week. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had the wrong dates. But when I told the instructor, she was like, well, she did pretty good. So, you know, suddenly my dog was a genius for getting so far through an advanced course. But that's something else I'm doing. Or, you know, piddling around with Photoshop. I just need to get some of these things I wanted to learn. I need to go ahead and do them. So we extracted our honey last week. I told you about it, and I have a few little, just quick clips of the process. You'll see us taking the frames. We already got the frames out the week before, out of the supers, the boxes, you know. So we brought them into our garage and where the bees wouldn't bother us while we worked. This is older comb.
Yeah.
It's probably from last year. It's all below the frame.
Yeah.
Maybe they did die out, and that's why.
Okay.
What do you think? Is that good? On the other side, was that
Yeah,
okay?
Very good.
All right.
That's good.
And you'll see us loading them into the extractor and then spinning it, and all the honey flings off of it and then down into the base of the extractor. It's a hand crank. It's super low tech what we do. It's actually pretty ghetto. And then we pull the frames out, flip them, put them back in, crank it again, then pull them out. And
I'm so glad we can get an electric one.
hand crank.
So much lighter.
And go ahead and we scrape the comb. I'm going to try and make some beeswax. Just, you know, melt the comb and extract the impurities out of it, and then have the rest for beeswax to make candles. So I think that's all. Oh, and then you'll see us straining them. Okay.
How many frames was that? 8 frames. It's probably 1 gallon of honey. What do you think?
Yeah. At least, maybe more. There we go. How many bags is that? 2?
2. It's double bagged.
And what type of filter?
It's just a paint strainer from Lowe's.
A pint strainer?
Paint strainer. Yes, my hands are clean. I just washed them. And then today we're going to pour them into jars, so maybe I'll have some of that too for you now. And that's all of it? Mm-hmm.
So what do we have there?
5 gallons.
That's all we got?
Yep.
Okay. I've been working on the shawl. It's a test knit for Stacy of Stress Knits podcast. She also has Stress Knits yarn. It's in her Eliza colorway. That's what I'm using. This is her Intuition shawl, but I call mine Mother's Intuition. She made this design while she was waiting for her daughter to be born, and this colorway is actually named after her daughter. Let's see if I can get the, you can see it, this is really sweet, little light and pastel type colors, and then those pops of teal. I really like this, the mustardy yellow next to the teal. When I was working on this at first, to me it looked like, it made me think of when your kids have like a pencil box with their crayons in it at school. It's lined in white paper, and the little marks that the crayons make in the box. That's what this makes me think of. Anyway, I've really enjoyed working on it. I did set it aside for a few days to try to knock Plum out at the end of July. I don't know why I thought I could do it. I can't. So I'm picking this one back up. And it's very meditative and relaxing knit. I'm enjoying it. And like I said last week, the cast on was different for me, so I actually learned something with it, which I always appreciate. And this is going to be done soon. I've really enjoyed working on it. I called it Mother's Intuition because I thought of how she is just was waiting for and now has her new baby, and I have, like, my youngest one is fixing to go away to college, and I'm feeling motherly. And I worked on it some at Canyon Lake. We visited my daughter and son-in-law, and we were all there together. It was a great little trip. So yeah, I'm just trying to get as much of my kids as I can this summer. My son, when he's home, he'll be like, "You want to watch Lost?" And we'll rewatch Lost. Our goal was to get to the last season. He's never seen the last season, and I really don't remember a lot of it because I didn't like it. But I don't think we're gonna make it. He doesn't have that much free time. He's working, but anyway, I've enjoyed it. So I got some more responses on a question I asked a while back about jumpstarting your health. What do you do, like, after a crisis or a time of stress to kind of reinvigorate? Julianne said what jump-started her health was just to start seeing it as something worth focusing on. She had a very stressful job, and her self-esteem was just rotten dealing with that. She was worn out, stressed out, and she, finally realized she had to quit this job. I imagine that's really hard to do, especially if you if you need the money. You don't have something else lined up. But, you have to take care of yourself. And an environment like that, a lot of times people get so worn down they can't make the change. Like they just feel too tired to even consider what else would I do? Where would I find another job? Or if it's been a really bad experience, you might doubt your ability to find something better. So I'm really glad for her that she did. And of course now she's dyeing yarn and doing something creative that she enjoys. But she said she got counseling for a while, and with the help of her husband and just a support network like that, she was able to make the changes she needed in her life. She has a lot of anxiety and depression in the past, and so I don't know if she said this in her comment or if it was on her latest podcast. She does My Muddlings podcast. She had said that she could recognize the signs of maybe it was depression coming on and knows what to do. Okay, I need to take care of myself. So she's just kind of cut herself some slack. If I don't podcast regularly, I don't have to. Just doing what she has to do to take care of herself. So making her health a priority was important for her. Julie had said, a different Julie, had said walking briskly outdoors was really good for her. She was on her feet and moving a lot, but nothing really getting her heart going, and that was very good for her. Another thing she had said, I think a couple of episodes back, but I didn't comment on it, or I did and it got eaten by my computer, was that she's realizing she can't be responsible for the emotions of the people around her. It was something I had said in an episode, and she was like, yeah, that is something I need to let go of. And so that's going to be part of her just healthy outlook on life, Anne-Marie said she was journaling her emotions, trying to see what her triggers were for maybe eating food she shouldn't. We talked about negative self-talk. That's what it was. I think that was my last episode. This whole computer frying thing that happened has me confused. That Nikki had said that she got diagnosed with fibromyalgia not too long ago, and she really feels like her health got to that point, some because of the stress her negative thought life caused. And so she was saying how it's important when you have those ridiculous negative thoughts. I'm not talking about negative thoughts where, oh, I feel bad because I was rude to someone. That's consequences. That's normal. But like just irrational negative thoughts we have in our head, if we said them out loud, we wouldn't say them out loud because people around us would think we were going overboard. But when she catches herself, she was saying, yes, it's important to refute it out loud. So for instance, I start to think, oh, but you're such a burden. You're not working, you're just a burden. That would be a negative thought I could have. And then out loud saying, you know what? I am working. I'm loving my family. I'm here for them, and there are things I do for this family that nobody else can do or would do that they need. So I have a good job. Something like that. Out loud, it's important to say it, replace it. Libby had also said she was going grain-free, dairy-free, caffeine-free. Me too. Except I do some grains. But homeopathy has really helped her with a hormonal imbalance, which is something I've never thought about. Like, I went to a compound pharmacist and got progesterone cream. But and some estrogen cream too, just a little. It really wasn't that great for me. Maybe the progesterone by itself would have been okay, but homeopathy is different. I read some on it, and I've never heard of a lot of the stuff, so that's something worth my looking into. I feel like my symptoms are managed now. I still have some things that are different, but they're not the end of the world. My skin is better. I still have extra weight on me, but I don't know that that's really a problem. It's not an unhealthy amount. Sarah Strange had said regarding negative self-talk that she had a lot of it as a young person. There was some teasing in school, and then just family dysfunction. And she just had these very negative outlook on herself. And then in her 20s, she began to go to church, and when reading the Bible, it just kind of broke the spell for her. And she started to see herself as valuable. Didn't have those thoughts anymore. But she looks back now and she says, every time I quit reading the Bible or praying, I start to have those negative self-talk again. And, I had shared that is what helped me with my negative thoughts about myself, was saying true things, specifically Scripture. So when I didn't, if I would stop reading, and things maybe were going good and I get busy and I'm not reading the Bible, I'm not saying those kind of things, the negative thoughts would return. Downer attitude about life, and I would have to be like, oh man, this is what I did. A few years ago, I decided I would try something to be regular with it, because I like to read the Bible. I have to sleep. I have to read to sleep at night. So I said, well, before I start up my Kindle and start reading whatever, a book, and at the time I started this, I was going through quite a bit with, my relatives that I was helping, the aging, and it was really sad. So sometimes if I thought about God or felt too much, thought about anything too deep, I would start to cry. It was very emotional. And I didn't read a lot of, I read fantasy and science fiction because I wouldn't cry. If I start reading that, I'd fall asleep. So if I were to read my Bible before going to bed, I would have probably stayed up crying, and then I couldn't breathe. And I know that sounds crazy. So what I did was I said, before I read any other book, so that I can fall asleep, I'm going to read my Bible. And maybe just a few verses, maybe a chapter or two, there was no set amount. I just read a little bit till I had something to think on. Sometimes that might just literally be a few sentences, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I would just think for a few minutes. Then I would start up my whatever space book. And I realized about 1.5 years of doing that, there was a change in me. I can't explain it. That's too short of a time for it to have been just a thing that was naturally going to happen with age. There was like a calmness. Even though things were falling apart and lots of stuff was sad, I knew that I was loved. And I could handle whatever came. I didn't want to handle it, but I could. And that is a kind of a deep assuredness I didn't have before. And honestly, I really think it came from the regular reading. So, I don't know. It was like a little experiment, but I still do that. I don't know. There's no other way to explain it. Lori has also asked how I knit with wool in the summer in Texas. So, this was real scratchy wool. She asked if I crank up my AC. I really don't. I feel like it's cranked up right now. I'm talking kind of loud to you because the AC is loud in our house, in this room. But my son and husband like it cooler than me. And I finally just gave up this year. I figure it's my son's last hurrah. He's going to college. We can let it be 76 instead of 78. It feels much cooler than 76. But I knit outside too. Not at high noon, but 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I knit outside. I just tough it out. I really like working with wool. However, I try every summer to do 1 or 2 summer weight projects, because those are the things I'm really going to be able to wear. They make more sense. So here's one. I have this May that I started at the end of the tops, tanks, and tees knit along. I I knew I wouldn't finish it, but I would like to finish it this year. So it's just in this Barocco Remix Light, which is a fingering weight yarn. It's got that tweedy look like wool, but it isn't. It's a recycled mix of everything. Nylon, cotton, acrylic, silk, and linen. It's mostly nylon, cotton, and acrylic. But it's got a nice natural feel to it. And this is a Andrea Mowry pattern. It's a really large, oversized, short sleeve V-neck sweater, kind of tunic-like. I have no idea. This is not pulled all the way out. These needles are too small for me to stretch it all the way. I started it. I did more than this. I got about, I don't know, this far through it, and it was just huge, really huge. So I went down a needle size or two. It's not fun knitting with 2s and 3s to me. A sweater on that isn't usually very much fun, but especially when it's not wool, there's no give. It's just harder on your hands, but it's going to be nice when I finish it. Which that also made me think about some, this is loud. The new pom-pom has lots of summer weight projects in it. First of all, look at this bag. This is like a little origami knitting bag type bag. I love that bag. I think I have enough comfort. Is it comfy fingering or sport? Whatever it calls for. I think I have some Knit Picks cotton that will work. And then with an order I got a while back, I got a little extra so that I could try and make it in multiple colors. There are so many good summer weight projects in here. I really want to do this one. It's Herrera. It's, oh, let me make sure I'm getting it. It's just an oversized fingering weight, slightly see-through top. You know, you wear something under it. But it's very gauzy, is my point. It would be really great in our weather. See the back? I love that open back. I believe I have enough Lindy chain in a color to do this. Plus, I have leftovers in 3 other colors. Yeah, I think I do. So I could do stripes, and actually the main color would be similar. It would be a darker brown, but I really want to do that too. I don't know if I will get it done before the end of the summer. Something I'm very excited about is this, I think Bayadere is how you would say it. Let me find it. It's a long sleeve sweater, but the idea is to use a 50-50 cotton wool. The yarn used in this sweater is Magpie Fibers Solstice. I've never used sorry. I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble seeing my screen here. Let's see if we have another picture. I love all that texture. It's textural stripes. So in a cotton wool, that would be so wearable. I did the Julia sweater a while back, and it's 50-50. In a Classic Elites Chesapeake Bay yarn, and that is my most wearable sweater. It's something I could wear year-round when I go into a movie or a restaurant that's cold. It's not going to overpower me, like, say, my Plum and 100% wool would. So they quit making that yarn. I looked for it online. I got it on sale as it was, probably because it was discontinued. And I've looked for it in a yarn shop and online since, because I thought, you know what, it's worth having some of that stowed away for a sweater, because I wear that sweater all the time. And, you know, I didn't make the sleeves as long as I wanted. They look okay. You know, a slightly, with a boxy, oversized sweater, a lot of times the sleeves actually don't even come to the wrist bone, but it comes to here. But I normally like a longer sleeve, so I'd wished I had more. So anyway, Classic Elite does have this song yarn. I don't know if it's new or not, but it was on sale, and so I did get some a while back. And I got 3 colors to make this Buy a Dare sweater. So there's white. Let's get these turned. Here we go. White, a light purple, and then this is kind of a, I don't know, wine color here. Anyway, I just thought these looked really nice together. It's a different palette than the pattern book, but that's okay. I like these colors better. I'm excited to do that. All of this is kind of me thinking summer sweater knit along too while I'm at it. But so Lori, I am trying to move to lighter weight knits. It's just hard. I don't enjoy making them as much. It doesn't feel as good on my wrist. And I've actually strained my wrist, I think, extracting the honey. Cutting the caps off the comb was, I don't know. And I've just tried to do different things, hanging on a bar. I know, I'm weird. And then a lot of knitting. So when it's half wool, it is so much easier to work with. I really do enjoy that. So you guys, what 50-50 or close to that wool blends have you worked with? I know Dana, who is, I think it's Call Me DWJ on Instagram, and I think I'm going to link her. I can't remember if I talked about this last time or not. She did a Tecumseh in a Barocco comfort. It's a totally, maybe cotton acrylic yarn. Perfectly summer weight. It's so neat. I would never think of doing a Fair Isle knit like Tecumseh in cotton or acrylic, cotton acrylic, ever. It looks so good. She does a lot of things with summer weight yarns so that they're wearable, which is wise, and all of her stuff. Her color choices are always so good. I'm going to link it, her Instagram, so you can click through her feed and see if you're interested in some ideas about summer weight yarns in regular sweater patterns, you know. I was saying I'm looking toward the summer sweater knit along, and I did something, I've seen a lot of people showing spin cycle yarns and like being a follower. They're so beautiful. I heard the interview Ashley of Woolful did with Spin Cycle a while back. I really enjoyed that interview. And I thought about getting the yarn, but I was like, what would I use it for? And, you know, maybe if it was like for a hat or something. It's really vibrant and unusual. It looks like hand spun. But they don't do hand spun anymore. They do mill spun yarn. But it's dyed ahead of time in the way they ply the fiber. It has the look of a hand spun yarn. Look at this. This is Mississippi Marsala. So these are light summery colors to me. Each skein is a little bit different. You never quite know how it's going to work up. So what I saw was an idea for how to use this without having to get a whole sweater's worth. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're trying to find a way to use up what you've got and still, use something new, I have some brown Knit Picks yarn, and I thought, okay, if I combine this for Guthrie from Caitlin Hunter, she has it's like a Fair Isle design all the way down the bottom of the sweater. It's a cropped sweater. The fit is more fitted than, say, the Plum that I've been working on, but it doesn't require a ton of yarn. And her version, one of her versions of it, I'll show you the picture if I can put it on here. She has Spin Cycle yarns used as the contrast color for the Fair Isle all the way down the sweater, and then the main color is a solid color. It was a beautiful gold, but I thought these would look good together. What do you guys think? The brown, I felt like it was contrasty, very contrasty, and that this Spin Cycle yarn would show up really well through the pattern, so I'm really excited about it. Let me show you. So I was thinking maybe this will be my summer sweater knit along, These are the important questions in life. see if I can find Guthrie. Let's see. There's a gold background and then this constantly changing spin cycle yarn makes the contrast color for the ferrule. Let me see if I can find another one. It's not spin cycle yarns, but you see the darker color is where my brown would be, and then the lighter color I would have the ever-changing spin cycle yarns for my foreground color. So I'm pretty excited about that. So maybe that will be what I do for the summer sweater knit along. That starts August 1st. It's just going to be on Ravelry, but it's always really active and it's a nice group. I always like to knit with them. So, you know, I was kind of trying to figure out, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? You know, I have that song, that 50-50 wool cotton. That'd be great for my climate. I ought to really do that. And then I also wanted to do Meg, and I think I showed you that already, by Junko. That is a really great cabled, also an oversized fitting sweater. And I was going to do it in this bouquet heather is what it is. So what do I want to do? And then I get this in the mail, which was a really great surprise. A few years ago, this Kickstarter came up for Great Northern Knits, which Great Northern is the hotel in Twin Peaks. And it's Leo Kokari Swift and Teresa Gregorio. They did these patterns. So there's Leah, and then you see Teresa. Oh, I love this. I started this sweater. I did a swatch. I still have my swatch. I started it, and then my hormones were really freaking out, and my weight was up and down for a while, and then it went really up, and I was like, I'm waiting, because I don't even have enough yarn and the colors I had to do a size larger than I thought I needed. But that, see, I could do that now, because I lost most of that extra weight. I have that yarn still. I could do that for my summer sweater knit along. There's all kinds of other good stuff, like some of these were pre-released for backers of the Kickstarter, like this little cropped from another place sweater, really cute, and see, that's pretty good for my climate also. Another one I really like is Jelly Donuts, which is, it's got this, let me see how I show it, this great cabled design. See how I can do this. I don't want to show pattern bits. Here we go. Cabled back and front, and then there's little toggles on the front. See the toggles? It's nice. These are all down the front. Oh, I just really want to. I don't know. And then there's my log. This log does not judge, or my log does not judge, after the log lady. This is a really great Cowichan looking design that Leah's got here. And then there's this owl right here on the back. Let me see if I can show you up close. So, I don't know. And I really don't need to buy more yarn. I did the spin cycle stuff. But I think this is worsted. I have some worsted. I also have little bits and leftovers that could be contrast colors, so I don't know. I've just got to look in my yarn and see what I can do. This upset all my plans for my my knit, so I have to rethink. Another one I really like, well, the sweater on the front, it's Too Dreamy. If you look, it's got a tree, and a feral tree motif all the way around the waist. It's lace weight, so that would be a serious knit. Anyway, this is just really fun. A lot of photos taken in sort of a Twin Peaks kind of setting and vibe. And then there's some housewares too, like a wall hanging, this pillow cover, you know, like the room, the Black Lodge. Also, like a little wall hanging, a stag wall hanging. this has got a lot of fun stuff in here. So I don't know. I have I did cherry pie as a test knit. And that's when I said, well, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to make it to fit me as I am right now, no matter what my hormones do. And it did. It fit me. Then when I lost some of that weight, it didn't fit me well at all. It's a zipper front, and it's meant to be fitted. So it didn't look right. But I have an idea. I want to still use it. I love it. Let me find it. Here's the top of it, the motif. Way. I can't get my lighting right. I thought I could take the zipper out of mine, knit up to the bust, and because to make the hourglass shape, it's just not going to fit me. My stomach was like, I don't know if you've ever gained weight that's absolutely from hormone therapy, but it all goes into your stomach, even if you've never been a person that collects it in your stomach, you know. Which I never have been. I would always be more of a thighs type pear-shaped thing, but it was all in my stomach. It was really fast. It was the hormone therapy. But so I was like, I could take my zipper out and rip back up to the bust and then just knit it straight, or maybe with a little bit of shaping, but more of a straight fit. Put a zipper back in. It may be a different zipper, I don't know. And then it would probably work and just be kind of like an oversized sweater, because the bust is a little oversized now too. I thought it could be just, you know, like a zip up oversized sweater. Maybe I could at least save my, you know, the sleeves and from here down on the sweater. I don't know. It's hard to make yourself clothing when you're hormonal and you're all over the place with your weight. I haven't been all over the place for a year, but I was. So intentional consumption, well, that fits, because here I am like, oh, do I make this sweater or that sweater? And I do have I have room in my life for a few more sweaters, because a lot of what I made pre-hormone stuff, I was smaller than I am now. That doesn't fit comfortably. So, but what if I didn't need any more sweaters? I told you guys I do like knitting for the fun of it. I like the challenge of it, but I tend to want to keep a lot of what I knit. And to be fair, not many people I know want knits. They're rarely worn when I make them. I made a hat for my uncle that was much appreciated, but that's rare. I made a sweater for my son-in-law. He loves it. And I gave my the edge sweater to my daughter. She loves it. But usually, you know, there's not a need. I have relatives who don't ever wear sweaters. So I asked you guys, how do you practice intentional consumption, like Alexandra had mentioned? When it comes to your knitting, do you just say, I don't need this thing, so I'm not going to waste the resources? And most of you that answered said you knit for others, which is very generous of you. Sarah does. She knits for other people, lots of gifts. Sarah Jane considers her wardrobe needs, but in the end, there's the joy of the design. And if she just likes the design, but it's not a need, she'll still knit it. Andy knits from stash so as not to waste. So, which, you know, that's the goal, right? Knitting up from that stash. And a few others. Marie said that she knitted gifts and for charity. So I have plans to knit some things for other people this year. It's not all going to be for me, but I do knit for myself a lot. I don't do other shopping and other things. It's kind of the only thing I do for myself, but I do it a lot for myself. I think Rosamond had a great idea. On her Instagram, she had boxes that she had filled with never worn sweaters she had made. Some when she was first learning to knit, very oversized Wool and the Gang type sweaters. And they were going to be sent off with Knit for Peace, which is this group that sends hand knitted items to places that maybe where people are in need. They began, from what I can understand from their website, they began with a focus on having people knit for other people groups that were considered hostile to them for orphans. And they would make these things by hand, never worn, and give them. Now it's expanded, and I really think anyone can send hand knit items in. All they ask is that it be hand knit with love and never worn. So they're sending things. Rosamond's boxes were going to Syria and Afghanistan. There's lots of places where there's a need. And they, even on their website, they'll tell you the things they're really having a need for and the things they have plenty of. I think baby knits was something they have plenty of right now. They needed adult and older child sizes. So that's a really good idea for a way to knit for people. For, say, someone like me. Say nobody really cares about knitwear and they sure don't want wool. Well, there are places in the world where wool would be the best thing. And that's a way to do for others and to use your skill. I really love that idea, Rosamond. At first I thought, wow, I have lots of things I could give, but if it's never been worn, no. I've worn all my stuff. However, it doesn't mean in the future I might want to knit something and donate it through this if there's no place locally. So I appreciated her sharing that on her Instagram. And I'm going to have the link to that in the show notes. I talked to you guys about how I was reading the sagas. Little Kitten recommended a radio program that was about the sagas, and I'm going to put the link here in the notes. I haven't listened to it yet, but I want to. I've so enjoyed reading them. And then Dagmar, who has responded before in comments and I think she lives in Iceland, but she's from Iceland. She had like a map of different yarn stores throughout the country for me and Katie when we were going to Iceland. We didn't do that area at all. We only did one yarn store. We were mostly there for the nature, but I kept the link, for the future. She's actually related to Egil, whose saga I told you this weird one gross story about last week. I think that is the coolest thing ever, to say your family genealogy goes back to Egil. What a character. So anyway, I just thought that was worth mentioning. Thank you for telling me that, Dagmar. So I guess for you guys, I'd like to know what wool blend yarns you've used and you enjoy. And what is your next sweater going to be? Are you going to do the summer sweater knit along? And if not, what are you going to do to prepare for fall? What's your next sweater project going to be? I'd like to know. Please leave the comments. Leave your answer in the comments. Bye.
Wait.